This is Chelsea Walsh from RBeatz Radio and Media Streaming Studios. Today I'm doing an author interview on Catherine Farley. Hello. Yes, I can. Hi.
I can hear you now too. It's nice to see you in person.
Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm well. I hope you are.
I am. I'm so excited for today. So, Catherine, you are much more than just an author, which an author in itself is a huge accomplishment. But you are a multidisciplined individual who has expertise in so many facets. Meet author, speaker, physical therapist, and wellness coach, Catherine Farley. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Chelsea.
Yes.
It's wonderful to be here.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. So I would just like to start off by asking a little bit about like your story. You know, where are you from? Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about what did you want to be when you grew up?
All the goods. I had no idea I'd be an author. So we'll begin with that. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina named Salisbury, which is about an hour north of Charlotte. And I had a very wonderful childhood. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and so I have a big family, and that was a gift in my life. And I grew up in a really old home. It was built in the 1860s, and so I have an appreciation for preservation and resourcefulness and all things like that. And I enjoy history as well, which one of the children's books, the one based on Sullivan's Island, focuses a lot on the history. So that was woven into my childhood, an appreciation for history and preservation. And so that's kind of where that stems from. And truthfully, I spent normal amounts of time as a child outdoors, but my love of the outdoors really came more as a result of suffering from anxiety in my early 40s. I really learned that being outdoors and appreciating nature was something that really allowed me to find peace and calm. And so I wove that into a lot of the children's books as well, because teaching young kids the importance of connecting in nature, I think, is paramount in this day and time where technology is so prevalent in our lives. And so a lot of what I do now stems from really a convergence of personal experience, my role as a mom, and my role as a professional as a physical therapist. So it's really the convergence of a lot of different facets of my life where I am now. So it's fun. It's been fun.
I think it's so important to get kids unplugged. Like, I'm of that era, I was born in 83, where we were just like, go outside. We didn't have cell phones. It's just such a different culture now. So I so relate to the get outside, go play with your neighborhood friends, go to the park, go ride your bike. So that's interesting. So what made you in your 40s discover to go get outside?
Well, I suffered from anxiety, a result of a lot of different things that were going on in my life, and ended up being diagnosed with panic disorder and ultimately with PTSD. And I tried lots of different things to really get my mind and body back into sync. And nature, I found, was one of those wonderful gifts that really allowed me to find peace and calm amidst a lot of other resources I discovered. But the nature was just wonderful. And at the time, I had children that were in elementary school. And so, kids love to be outdoors. And really, my children were the spark for writing children's books. When they were really little, we collected books from places we visited. Instead of getting T-shirts, that sort of thing, we would always get a book that was oftentimes had been written by a local. And so when we spent time down on Seabrook Island when the kids were little, and they really felt like there needed to be a book about Seabrook Island. And providentially, we met a gentleman who had self-published some books, and then we met an artist who illustrated in a very whimsical way, or her artwork was very whimsical. And I approached her to see if maybe she'd be interested in illustrating a book for us. And she was really excited to try. And so we just put together a great team of people and started down this path because windows just kept opening. And so we thought, well, I guess this is what we're supposed to be doing right now. And really began to love sharing coastal nature with young children. And it's been a really fun journey writing the
I
books.
love that. Well, I was going to say, when did you begin to write? You know, you think a lot of kids think if you're an author, you know, you've got to start as a kid, or when did you start?
Chelsea, that's really a kind of a comical story because I look back and I was never English was not one of my strong suits growing up. I was driven more in math and science, and so as a I read but didn't read extensively, and I learned how much books could add to your life really more as an adult, to be honest. And through my education, and all that sort of thing. So I, the book journey was something that I really had to learn to do, and really dug in and learned more about writing when, in my adulthood, to be honest. And so I took some courses and found myself surrounded with people that were quite gifted in that arena. And so I learned from them and have just worked hard at, getting that whole part of me educated and trying something new.
That's so, so cool. I love that message. Trying something new as an adult. And look at you here today. You're an author, a published author. It's so neat.
Yeah. Something I never dreamed of. But, I truly believe that when we pay attention to, our surroundings and what's going on around us in our lives, that often little windows or sometimes big doors will open, and it's really fun to explore and be curious about, what your next steps might be, because sometimes there are things that you never would have imagined, and they bring you incredible joy and, fullness in your life. So I love encouraging people to try something new. And, if they want to learn something new, we're always, there's abundant resources around us to learn. We've got technology now that, I think after experiencing the pandemic, we've learned that there really aren't boundaries in terms of communicating with different people that have different knowledge, different resources. And, if one of the things we learned in the silver lining from the pandemic is, just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. What is your inspiration behind the book series, Mischievous Mimi? Like, where did it come from? You have a deer, an adorable deer who sometimes gets himself or herself into like issues, some problems. So where did this all stem from?
Mimi, as I've reflected, actually is a reflection of me as a person, to be honest. I, it's really funny when we started writing, it was all about exploring nature, but then I looked at some of the qualities that this little deer had, and I thought, goodness, she's a little bit like I am. you know, um, she's curious, and she does hold true to, values and her belief system, but she kind of steps out and is, likes to meet people, likes to connect with things that are different from her. And, she just is a courageous little soul. And those are some of the characteristics that I believe that I am as a person. And so as I've looked back in time at, they say that hindsight is way better, more than 2020 actually. But I've looked back as I've looked at this little character developed through these 3 books, and I think, goodness, she's a little bit like I am, just growing and transforming and learning through all these seasons in her life. So, but Mimi was really a character that was born out of a lot of fun conversation with my 2 daughters, Madeline and Mary Catherine. Um, we were trying to figure out an animal that was on the island that could go a lot of different places, could be on the beach, could be in the marshes, could be really everywhere on the land on the island as well. And the deer was was that animal. And so this is how Mimi was born.
I love that. Okay, this is kind of like a question, and I don't know, it'll be interesting. I'm interested to know your answer. Out of the 3 stories that you've written, which is your favorite and why?
Oh, wow. That is a
I
good
know.
one. I probably would have to say that they all resonate in different ways and for different reasons. I think they all equally share beautiful parts of nature that are important in teaching children conservation. But I do have to say that Mimi Discovers Sullivan's Island is probably the one that has the biggest meaning for me as a person, personally. Because when I was writing Mimi Discovers Sullivan's Island, my son and one of my nephews helped me with the book. And being boys, and they recognize this, they were not as involved as the girls were in writing the other books. But Mimi is challenged in this story, the Sullivan's Island story, because her brother was injured. And as a physical therapist, I notice when people are injured or their movement has been disturbed for whatever reason. And so that's just what my professional eye is trained to do. And so I think I see the reflection of myself in this book as being very strong. There's also a part in this book where Mimi rests below the eaves of a little chapel that's on Sullivan's Island. And I think that resting in my faith and knowing that I always have my faith is something that's a foundation in my life is also something that's very important. And so those 2 things found within Sullivan's Island, I think, really resonate closely with me. So, and I hope they do with the reader as well.
Yes, yes. Have you thought about writing about a different animal outside of a deer? Like, have you explored other options? I mean, I love the fact, and I'm learning so much about, why you're writing about geographical areas, because that's where you and your kids would always purchase books instead of T-shirts. But what about, like, have you thought about writing about, I don't know, a different place or a different animal?
I love the coast is a place that just brings me such peace, and I have just a tremendous connection with the nature here. The plants, the animals, the ocean, just everything about it resonates with me and has so much beautiful symbolism and inspiration. I actually have a nephew that has autism, and he's actually my godson. His name is Luke. He's an amazing 8-year-old. And my sister and I have been talking about writing, collaborating on a book that may help autistic children and how they may engage in a healthy way at the coast. And so we've just been kind of stirring around these ideas in our minds. And so we'll see what we come up with. I haven't thought about a specific animal. I will say that in all of the books, I use a bird as an important character within the books. And so I think a bird has a beautiful perspective, being able to see from the sky. And I think birds, just the idea of being able to take flight and soar, I love the symbolism in that. So if I had to guess, a character, a next character could potentially be a bird. So we'll see. But I'm really starting to think about and be inspired by writing for, a child that has autism, and, just weaving in the different things that they may be able to grow from in the coastal environment. So that's my latest inspiration, and we'll see where it goes.
I'm so how long does it take you to write a book? Like from start to finish? I'm just curious about that. I'm thinking like you're in the framework now of kind of thinking with your sister, like, okay, my nephew has autism, her son, and Like you have the framework now, right? But like and I'm sure it varies per book, but from start to finish, how long does that normally take?
Well, the process, I think if you wanted to really work through it in a really efficient way, I think you could probably do it within 6 to 8 months. But for me, I love to be inspired. So I'm inspired right now. Like there's an idea that's percolating. Um, then I like to really reflect and kind of think about and make notes on, what are the possibilities? What do we want to learn? What do we want to share with children in this book? And then thinking about the setting and, what would be a wonderful setting in terms of, will it be a specific island or will it be just the coast in general? So a lot of my thought process is probably what takes the bulk of time, and just allowing that to kind of percolate. I like to pray over things because I just feel like I'm a faithful person, and God is a big part of my life, and is ultimately what gives me life. And so that's a big part of kind of seeing the direction that He wants things to take. And so I each of these books has been about a year and a half in the making. Um, Once we start writing the story, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't come easily to me. Creativity is something that is one of my gifts. And so when I can bring my creative side in, with the structured side of the writing, I know that I've got great resources in terms of beta readers and an editor and all that sort of thing. And so that is super helpful in terms of being able to make the writing part work. And then, an illustrator completely brings a story to life in a children's book. And so that's a really important component as well. So you have to give the illustrator time to, do the illustrations that are appropriate for the story. And then you also have, the editing part, which for a children's book is a little bit shorter because there's not as many words. And then you have a graphic designer that actually pulls the pieces together, the manuscript and the illustrations. So the graphic designer is also, a really integral part of the book publishing. And then the book goes off to print after that. So, so that's the process. And, right now the printing takes a little bit longer just because of resources and, the shortages that we've seen in our world today. But I would say, for me, it's about a year and a half. For someone that was, maybe didn't take as long to think about and ponder over the inspiration and process, they could probably do it in 6 to 8 months.
Wow. You speak a lot about your faith, and I love that. It looks like you have something new in the works, a new devotion that you've written. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. While I was writing the children's books, I knew in my heart at some point that, I felt like I had been given the gift of writing, and given the gift of recognizing how nature plays such a beautiful role in our lives and can really enhance who we are as people. I just knew that I wanted to write a devotional. And I decided last year, I'd been doing a lot of writing on Instagram during the pandemic, and people were enjoying reading the encouragement and inspiration. And I would often pair the writing with a picture from nature. And so I didn't even realize it at the time, but I think I was kind of testing out the idea and so of the devotional. And so I made a pact with myself, because often, when you're working on a project by yourself, it can be lonely, and also sometimes you lose the motivation because you're like, well, will people really want this in the world? Or, fear kind of creeps in, doubt kind of creeps in at times. But so I thought I'm going to ask an artist friend of mine who I really admired all of her work. She lives in Charlotte, and she does beautiful, scenic landscape art, acrylic paintings. And so I called her and we met for coffee, and I told her about my idea, and she immediately had just a resounding yes. And so I thought, oh my goodness, this is the timing is right for this. And so we started working on the project, and it was published this past February. So February of 2022, it came out, and it's called Desert to Dawn. And so it's a beautiful 40-day journey where I share a little bit about my journey in the prologue, my journey with anxiety, panic disorder, and PTSD. And then I use my physical therapy background, and the next section provides resources for people, exercises and mindfulness, breath work to bring calm into your body, the practice of gratitude, instruction on expressive writing to heal, which is a whole nother topic that I've discovered through this writing journey. And so you have those tools that are included in the Desert to Dawn book. And then there's a 40-day journey where each day has a word of the day, and it has a scriptural verse. And then it also has a reflection that I've written, and then a prayer at the bottom. And there's Julie Barnett is the artist that provided the artwork for the book. So there's gorgeous, serene paintings all throughout the book. And there's also space. Each day there's also a question to ponder. So there's space for you to write and journal about, what's moving in your life as you're reading these hopeful and encouraging messages in the 40-day journey. So that has been my latest publication. And thankfully, it's been very well received. As I have people that will send me emails and just say, I turned the page, and that very morning I was reading exactly what I needed to hear that day. And you just know that, that God has a plan in your life and a reason for you writing certain things. And then that plan is also hopefully impactful in other people's lives. So I just really, it awes me to think about how he weaves things together. And I think the older we get and the more we trust in what he's doing in our lives. And sometimes it's things that you can't even imagine, that he would do. I mean, I look back 10 years ago and think to myself, goodness, I would have never imagined that I'd be sitting here calling myself an author. And it's just been a surprising, unexpected journey that I just have so much gratefulness for. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. Going back to your childhood a little bit, what was your favorite children's book?
Oh, goodness. My mom loved to read A Little Engine That Could with us.
Oh, I love that one.
I have to say, I think, the way I am as a person, be it as a mom or a physical therapist, or even in writing these books, I'm an optimist and I'm an encourager. And the encouragement part, I think, started with that little engine that could, that, just kept saying, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And so I think that was probably one of my favorite children's books. We read a lot of different ones, but that's really the one that stands out to me the most, for sure.
I completely am in line with you on that one. I love that story. It's phenomenal. It really is. So I'm here with you on that one.
Chugging up the mountain with, all sorts of goodies for everybody.
Yes. And then at the end, she said, I knew I could. It's a great story. What advice would you give to children that want to become an author?
I guess the biggest thing is to continue to be curious, to ask questions, and to believe in anything that is placed upon your heart, that there's probably a way to accomplish it through faith and perseverance. Those would be my top things. So just, always be curious about your surroundings, and, noticing what's going on around you, and notice what really resonates with you. Notice what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel love, what makes you, feel whole as a person. And those are the things you want to you want to step towards.
I love that answer. And my last question, it's kind of a big one, is who is your superhero and why? Who is your superhero? We all have one.
Yeah. I have to say, I have a lot of everyday superheroes. I feel there are people, it's hard for me to name just one, Chelsea. I think that I have a lot of people in my life that are people that I have kinship with, that, we pray together, or people that I've worked alongside with. I have a couple of physical therapy clients that I've known for a long time who are neurologically involved and that I've worked with for over 20 years. And those are kind of my superheroes, because I think the people that do every day with heart and with soul are the people that inspire me. Because it's easy to look like a superhero, when you're in the limelight, because you're in the limelight. But I think the people that, potentially go unnoticed and that may have to persevere times 100 every day, are the ones that are really my superheroes.
Catherine, this interview has been so enlightening. I loved diving in, learning a little bit more about you. Thank you so much for taking the time today to sit down with me and chat. And I cannot wait to see what next animal, maybe a bird, wink, wink.
Absolutely.
What's in the works. So thank you so much for today. And we'll be in touch again. This is not a goodbye. This is a see you later.
I loved it, because I think you asked some wonderful questions, and you allowed me to kind of think back and appreciate a lot of the wonderful things that have been woven together since my childhood. And I think it's so important when we can reflect back and understand, kind of where we came from, because often that inspires where we're going. And we have, just beautiful threads that are being woven together. So I think it's pretty neat. And as adults, read a children's book, because I feel like it ignites the childlike spirit in us again. And so that was one of my favorite things to do when my children were a lot younger. They're 18, 16, and almost 14 now. So we don't read as many children's books, but I will say I think it's one of the healthiest things that we can do as humans is immerse ourselves in a good kid's story that just, may resonate with you. So
that is awesome advice. Thank you so much. I will take that to heart. And yes, thank you so much, Catherine, for your time. And I look forward to seeing what is more to come. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to rBeatz Radio Media Streaming Studio. Thanks for listening to the Catherine Farley interview. Please click subscribe and follow at rkidzBeatz.com.